Do you ever just sit and wonder, how did I get here? Have there been times in your life where you got to a point and you just wondered, how did you get there? Well, that happened to me right before I decided to take this weight loss journey this time around. When I stepped on that scale and saw 235 pounds, I simply had to ask myself, how did I get to this point? I don't recall eating a lot of food. I don't recall allowing myself to just let go or not worry about what I was consuming. I've always been fairly health conscious. But the truth of the matter is, it's deeper than just eating too much. So many things contribute to how we finally get to that number or that weight or that feeling that tells us we absolutely have to lose some weight. So, how do we get here? The main one is a no-brainer, and it's what we put in our mouths and how little movement we have. We choose to eat a lot of things that we know we shouldn't, that simply taste good or make us feel better or whatever the case may be. So I'm not going to go down the long rabbit hole of what you should and shouldn't eat or how much you should or shouldn't eat. We know that that is the number one contributing factor of why we got to this number on this scale that has made us terribly, terribly uncomfortable. But there are a lot of other contributing factors. Second being the busy lifestyle. When you're ripping and running with the kids, or once the kids are gone and you don't feel the need to have to cook large meals anymore, you just grabbing and going, getting convenient food, running through drive-thrus and heating things up in the microwave, not really paying attention, kind of mindlessly eating things, always choosing what makes you feel better or what's quick and easy is not always the right option. Sometimes we get busy. We skip lunch, or we get to the end of the day and we haven't had lunch, so we grab something on the way home for dinner, and then at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock we're eating junk. We are not planning our meals and taking the time to focus on what we are consuming because we're just so busy with everything else. When I had kids, it was working till 5, picking them up from their extracurricular activities, trying to get them something to eat, get homework done, and get on and doing the same thing the next day. Then the weekend, it was either all day on the football field or at a volleyball tournament. There's nothing there but concession stands and junk. So we do, sometimes life gets busy and, we don't focus on what's important. And I must say that as moms, many times we will take care of everybody other than ourselves. And trying to make sure that we have something healthy to eat is not always number one on that list. Now, one of the big ones for me was emotional eating. I told you guys, anytime and every time something crazy happened, I would go to Steak and Shake and have, their Western barbecue burger and a heat shake, and it would just make everything better, at least for the time being. So when my emotions are out of whack or if there's something going on, I tend to eat things that are bad for me. Now, I have since I've been on these GLP-1 meds, and they really do away with cravings and desires to eat stuff that, you don't necessarily want. I haven't had that issue for a while, but that is a fear that when I'm no longer on these meds, I'm going to start back craving those things if something happens. So we have to get our emotions under control, and we have to stop and ask ourselves, why am I eating this? Am I hungry? Do I have a better choice, or am I trying to feed an emotion that is getting the best of me at this point? Emotional eating is a thing, and it's one of the things for me. So that's another contributing factor. Now, this is not a thing for me, but in doing a little bit of research, I have found that there are a lot of people that lack the education that's around what you should and should not eat, how much you should and should not eat, what's good for you and what's not. Because sometimes we just go along with what we ate as kids, what our parents gave us, what our families eat, and we need to educate ourselves on what we should and shouldn't do. And I really do try to educate my family. My kids are aware we've been doing this for a long time, but my parents are the worst. My dad would eat ballpark franks every day simply because he don't want to have to put forth the effort of cooking the thing. And my mom would drink 2 or 3 Cokes and a Dr. Pepper, and she's always got every kind of chocolate you can think of in the refrigerator. And they enjoy those things. And I have tried and tried and tried to convey to them that some of these things just aren't good for you. That Popeye's chicken and all the things they just love so much just aren't good for you. And I really wish they wouldn't eat it. But there are some people that you simply cannot educate on what's good for them and what's not. They're just going to do what they're going to do. And I found that, at this stage of my life, I only have to focus on me. I did rear my children correctly. They do like fast food, but both of them know how to cook. They try to eat as healthy as they possibly can. And, that's the best I can hope for. My parents are 82 years old. And at this stage, they can just do whatever they want to do. I really do try to help because the sugar is a huge contributing factor to my mom's rheumatoid arthritis, thus 3 knee surgeries. But I can't convince her that sugar is bad for her. And she is an educator. She taught for over 50 years. So I know that she knows better. She's just choosing not to do better. And sometimes you have to let people make their own choices. Another big one for me is sedentary living or sedentary living. I work 10 hours a day and I work at a desk. And I am primarily sitting the entire time. Now, the company that I work for, we do have stand desks that we can stand up at. We can move around. I'm not chained to a desk for 10 hours, but I typically choose to sit around. And during this weight loss journey, we have, a nature trail, and we have a huge recreation center and a walking track and all sorts of things. So I typically will eat my lunch at my desk and then go for a walk if it's not too hot. Or I will go for a walk in the afternoon. I try to get some movement in. But that sedentary lifestyle of just sitting around and sitting around and sitting around is another reason that we can't burn the calories that we are consuming, because we have to have some movement in order to do that. And if you're sitting still or if you're sitting at a desk all day, sometimes that can be a detriment as well. And I spoke about this just a little bit a few seconds ago. There are a lot of cultural factors that come into play. How our families cook, how our families have always eaten, the kinds of things that our families buy. I still buy many of the brands that my grandmother used to buy, the China doll rice and, this kind of cornmeal and Domino sugar and all those things. We tend to do what we have grown up seeing, but when you know better, you have to do better. And that's really, really important. We cannot let culture dictate what's happening with us if we're the ones that need to be losing weight. If every woman in your family is obese, if they got that fat hanging off their arms, that some people love to say that means they can cook good, or if everybody in your family is wearing a 20 or, plus with a 55, inch waist, there is something wrong. And that's a culture that you need to no longer identify with and try to do better if you are morbidly obese and you are having problems. Because just remaining in the culture, just because everybody else is doing it, is simply killing all of you slowly with your knives and forks each and every time you get together and you eat those things. And the big one, the one that I have seen the most comments on my videos, are the emotional or unchecked mental health issues that many people have. There were so many people in my comments that talked about depression and anxiety and, eating the pain away, and the traumas from their past being the main contributors to why they overeat. A lot of sexual abuse victims tend to be morbidly obese because they feel as if they aren't appealing to the eye, people won't touch them or somebody won't touch them. That is a mental health issue that needs to be addressed. And our mental health is just as important as our physical health. Sometimes an abundance of weight is a symptom of untreated pain, untreated trauma, things that we need to address and deal with. And in all of the comments where I saw issues of trauma or mental health or anxiety or depression, my first recommendation was to get that in order. We have got to take care of our mental health. So if you are struggling with anxiety or depression, or if you emotional eating and things of that nature, we've got to get that under control first. I strongly encourage therapy. You can get a nutritionalist, you can eat better, but if you don't get your mind right, nothing you do is going to work. So if you're suffering from any of those things, let's start with some therapy. Let's find somebody to talk to. And when you talk to them, sometimes the trauma that you're dealing with really has nothing to do with your consumption of food, but the food is a coping mechanism to deal with those things. So don't be afraid to have a conversation with somebody about what's going on with you, and let's get our mental health under control so we can get our physical health under control, because believe it or not, everything is connected. Our mind, our heart, our bodies is all connected. Our gut, everything is all connected. So when one thing is out of whack or not functioning at its highest capability, other things tend to get out of whack as well. And we got to get in alignment. We got to get all those things under control so we can live full and healthy lives. Now, there are a few things that we can do. Once you get that mind right and you decide that this is what I'm going to do, you deal with that trauma and that anxiety and that depression, you get that under control, and you decide that the time is now. You wake up and you go, this number on the scale, I can't do it anymore. I don't know how I got here, but here I am, and these are a few things that I can do to get off of this hill that I have climbed. And that first thing is just simply start with awareness. Ask yourself, why am I eating this? Am I hungry? Am I just eating because I don't have anything else to do? Why am I eating this? And if you aren't hungry, another thing I do, before I eat, I'll have, a glass of water, or I'll have some herbal tea. If it calms the hunger cravings, then I wait a little bit longer to eat. But if I am still hungry after getting that glass of water or consuming a little bit of herbal tea, then I go ahead and I eat. I do try to eat one meal a day, and I fast well past 12 noon. I try to eat one meal a day, and then don't eat any more that night. I will have some herbal tea. I might have a snack, maybe a small salad or some fruit or something like that. But I do try to eat my main meal between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. so that I'm not hungry before I go to bed, and I've had a chance to allow my body to fully digest what I consumed the day before. Now, we all know there are going to be occasions when there are events and things going on and you're going to eat more than one time a day. But just be mindful of what you consume. So if you consume that second meal a day, it could be a little lighter than the first, or you can eat light at first and save your main meal just so that you have enough time for everything to digest. And swap, just make a few swaps. If it's going to be a day where I feel like I'm going to consume a number of calories, then I don't consume any alcohol and I don't consume any beverages other than water or herbal tea. And I just simply add lemon to my tea. I don't add any sweetener to my tea unless it's a bitter one, and I will sometimes add a little bit of honey. But we do have to be mindful. We want to swap things out. You can't have the soda and then eat all of the carbs and then turn around and have an alcoholic beverage as well. That's just not smart. So we want to, swap things out. Another thing that I found to be extremely helpful is meal prep. Because the worst thing in the world for me is to have to decide what I'm going to eat. By the time I decide, I have made a poor decision. But if I have something already ready, that never happens. I try to keep a couple eggs boiled. I try to have some fruit cut up. I try to have, vegetables around that are easy to cook. And I try to keep some protein around. I will, get a rotisserie chicken, or I will bake some fish, or, something like that. I will add a little bit of ground beef, with taco seasoning to some salad, because protein is really important. It keeps you from feeling hungry. If you don't eat meat, you can always add some legumes or some beans to your meals to help fill you up. But try to stay away from those starchy things like white potatoes and rice and pasta and things of that nature, if you can help it at all. But having something prepped and ready to go, or at least knowing what you're going to eat ahead of time, will save you a lot of trouble. And make sure you are moving your body daily. That's the easy thing, but it's the hardest thing for me to do. I have to make myself get out and walk. I can come up with every excuse in the world why I'm not walking. I have to make myself do those 12 push-ups in the morning and, in the evening. I have to make myself do those things because I just don't enjoy it like I used to. My sister gets up at 3:45 in the morning to go and work out when she has to be to work at, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. And she will get up, go work out 3 or 4 times a week like it's nothing. I'm doing nothing at 3:45 but sleeping, and sleeping well because my alarm clock won't be going off for another hour and 15 minutes. I am not motivated enough to get up that time of morning to go work out, but I will push myself to try to get my steps in. I'm at 10,000 steps a day now. I'm hoping to eventually get to 12 now that it's cooling off a little bit and it's not so hot. And I'm going to do those push-ups. I hit my weight goal this time when I went to my weight loss doctor this past week, and he wants me to focus on some strength training, less cardio, more strength training. And I've got all the bands and the weights and the things in there, so I'm going to try to transition to a little bit of that and get some of those things done. But movement is so important. It's important that we monitor what we eat, but it's also important that we move. I would be lying to you if I said I did a lot of exercise and during this weight loss journey, because I did have the help of the GLP-1 medications. But in the past, I have done lots of exercising to get the weight off, and I know that they both work. So make sure that movement is a part. If you have a lot of weight to lose, then you may have to start with reducing what you eat and then move up to more movement, because I know it can be difficult when you're morbidly obese to exercise. But everybody should walk. Park the car a couple of steps down from the door and walk. Make sure you are walking down the hallway. Don't send the kids after things. Get up and get it yourself. Don't be sedentary. Get up, move around, get your heart pumping, get you moving around. It will absolutely save your life. And keep a check on your mental health, because if it starts to slide, you're going to throw away this whole eating thing. It's going to go out the window. And this video was not primarily to give you more tips on how to lose weight. We have talked about that ad nauseum. This video was simply to say there are times when we wake up and we have no clue how we got here, or we don't remember how we got here. And the truth of the matter, that's not something you need to spend all that much time focusing on. We are here, but we need to know where we went wrong. And for me, it's the minute I hit my goal weight, I start back with all of the bad habits. Eating fast food, drinking sodas, consuming too much wine, not paying attention to what I'm eating. And this time around, I'm not doing that. The drugs have helped me not even crave those things, so I've kind of gotten over the desires and the cravings for the sugars. I make my own juice. I try to meal prep. I try to do all those things. So understanding how I got here, and also realizing that I did not get here overnight, and I'm not going to lose the weight overnight. I am almost 1 year in this weight loss journey, and it took me that long to hit my goal weight, but I hit it nevertheless. And I'm going to keep going. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same. So understanding how we got here is the beginning. Getting your mental health in check is next. And then you guys know everything else. So I am loving this series. I am loving talking about losing weight and all the things that we need to be focusing on so that we can do better together. So keep your notifications on. Please keep leaving me all the comments. I am loving the comments, and I am trying to reply to each and every one of them. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join me in this weight loss journey, because this is a lifetime of changes. This is not something that we're simply doing until we hit the goal, because I have hit the goal several times and had to start over, but not this time, and we're going to do it together. So until the next time, toodles.